friends. It's a little dark in here right now, but it's dark because I want to show you what you'll be making in the next 30 minutes or so. It is our Auroras Papercraft. Ooh, so you see some trees in there, some light, some auroras, some stars. It's gonna be a really cool project for us to assemble, and you have all of the materials waiting for you in your Saturday series tote. So grab that, maybe grab a snack, and let's get started. To begin, you may have noticed that in your handy Saturday series tote bag, which you should totally keep and bring back to the next workshop series, you have found possibly some invisible tape in there. It's way more tape than you could possibly need for this workshop. In fact, you might not have needed it at all, but we wanted you to have it. So what we would like, or what I would suggest at starting off this process, is to take 2 tiny pieces of tape and just set them off to the side so that you have them ready at hand when you are putting this paper craft together. I have a tape dispenser here at home, so I'm going to use this one. Perhaps you do as well. But I'm going to take, and I can adjust my camera here as well. So I'm going to take 2 little pieces of tape. I'm just going to stick them off to the side right now, just so they are ready for me when we begin. Now, in this tote bag, you should have a little sandwich bag that is filled with fun supplies to help you put this whole project together. So I would say the best thing to do is to take everything out and take a look and see what you have available to you. So there's some pieces of paper in here. We have glue stick. And again, way more glue stick than you could possibly need for this, so save it and use it. For some other craft, we have this fun battery that we'll be putting to use. Again, more paper, and so you should have 2 pieces of paper like this, a bunch of conductive tape that we'll be using soon, and an LED. Awesome. So save the sandwich bag for something else, perhaps a snack, perhaps for holding other supplies later. Definitely not a thing to waste. All right, so we have our supplies here. I would say the first thing to do would be to check out your LED, and let's figure out how this thing works. If you've ever used an LED before, you might know that an LED has 2 leads or 2 legs. We have a short one, a short leg, and a long leg. The short leg is the negative end of our LED, and the long leg is our positive end. That's something to keep in mind as we put this together. So let's check out that LED. So everyone has a little tiny button battery that is in packaging. I want you to get this out of the packaging, and please be careful. It can be sharp on the sides, so it should easily pull off though. And then you can just pop it open and your battery is ready to roll. Usually when we are storing batteries, we want to keep them in the packaging because we don't want positive and negative ends to touch. That can certainly be a hazard. So let's get this LED to light up. Let's just see what it looks like at first. So the very flat and shiny end, you can see that positive right there. That is the positive end of your battery. And of course, the opposite end, kind of bumpy, is the negative end. So you want to have your long leg, that is your positive leg, on the positive side of the LED. So let's just shove that right on there. Oop, and check it out. It works beautifully. Now, if this doesn't happen right away, a few things could be the issue. Perhaps it's not touching the right end. So if the interesting thing about LEDs is that if you connect it so that the positive and negative legs are not on the right place, it won't light up. So try switching it over if that's not lighting up. That's usually the #1 issue when I work on LEDs with my students. But yes, it should light up. And you might notice too that you have some changing colors here. These are really awesome LEDs. They are a slow color changing LEDs, so we can get some really great northern lights effects from these. So get excited. All right, so I have shown that that definitely works. So we are good to go. So let's get started. I'm gonna keep my battery and my LED off to the side right now, so it's out of the way. It's really easy to lose those LEDs. All right, so the first thing we are going to work with out of this kit is this laser cut piece of paper. It's white, and you'll see that little slit on the top there. So actually it should belong on the bottom. So you'll see these little lines right here. And I loved using the laser cutter to cut this out for you guys because like it really, you can see exactly where you need to fold. And actually the laser cutter made it so that you can fold pretty easily on these lines. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna fold on the outermost 4 lines. So it's gonna be this line, this line, this line, and this line right there. So we're gonna do a valley fold, which essentially is where we fold in like this. So fold like that. You wanna do this on all 4 of those. Nice, even fold right there. Take your time with these. It's totally cool to, you know, just really be careful with this because you want it so that it's a nice flush line. Again, the laser cutter should help with that process, but take your time. We're in no rush here. It's a Saturday, or perhaps it's a Sunday, or Friday, depending on which day you want to do this. There's no set time for when we can take on these Saturday series projects. Cool. So as you have seen, I have done a valley fold or a fold in with the outer edges of our Papercraft. Awesome. All right. So the reason I did that was that I want you guys to take some of this glue stick and we are going to glue all of these parts in onto themselves so that we have kind of more of a square shape here. So you can watch me do it here. So most of you guys should have this purple glue, which you crafting folks probably know that it looks purple when you spread it, but dries clear, which is just great. So I'm going to apply some glue right here. So applying some glue. And note, I didn't get it on these little out squares right here because we're going to use those eventually. So I put some glue right there and I'm going to fold it in and voila, stuck. Cool. And I'm going to do that with all 4 sides. So I'm going to do that here. Make sure you're not too stingy with that glue. We really want to make sure this sticks. So definitely glue it up. Use the glue stick too. I know some of you folks love to use the liquid glue, which I love liquid glue too, but it's gonna get real messy if you try that here. So stick with the glue stick. Glue stick is wonderful. So gluing that down. And again, you do not have to do this quite at this speed. You can go faster if you want, or you can go a little bit slower. Feel free to pause this video as I'm going through if you need to slow down. Maybe grab a snack. Hopefully you guys have had a delicious bagel and cream cheese perhaps at this point, or a piece of fruit. All right, awesome. So as you can see, I have glued together all of those folds. So now I'm left with these little sort of squares that are off to the side here, which is great because I am going to now fold in. So these little parts that we've glued together, I'm going to fold once more in. So take a look. And it should be fairly easy to fold because that laser cutter also did a little etching there. So we should be able to fold those fairly easy. So folding down here. Nice. So folding that down. Again, doing these valley folds. If you are a fan of origami, you probably know what a valley fold is. It's just that fold in. So fold in and my last fold in. Nice. Cool. So we got folds in and folds in. Nice. So you may have guessed it at this point, but what we're going to do is we're going to make kind of a shallow little box here. And we're going to do that by gluing down these little flaps that we kind of have just sticking out there. So how I do this, how I would do this is I'm going to take that handy glue stick and I'm going to glue these little tabs right here. So kind of like that. And I'm just going to stick it down like so. So it makes kind of that nice box shape. So gluing that down, and then I'm going to glue this tab down too to close it off. Now that I'm doing this, I'm starting to see that maybe I should have painted my nails before this. Maybe next time, depending on what we're doing. I think it's glacial postcards, so I might have an up-close view of my hands again. All right, so I've glued that tab down. Nice. We're going to do that on the other side too. So just as before, I'm going to take this tab, glue, glue, glue. Nice. And oh, that's not enough glue. A little more glue. Again, never have enough glue stick here today. This is just perfect. All right. And then finally, the last tab to glue down. All right. So it is glued. Yes, yes, it is glued. And really just press those little tabs on there. Make sure they're really on there, nice and snug, because you really don't want this coming apart later on. Ideally, this will dry together and be able to be used again and again. If you do have some of that extra tape, either from the kit or maybe you got some at home, you could use those to reinforce these edges right here. I'm not going to do that, but if you see later on that the edges are starting to fall off, you could certainly do that to reinforce those edges. Sweet. Now, you should have a nice shallow box. Beautiful. I'm going to put that off to the side right now because we've got to put together our wintry scene. Lovely. So you see these little laser cut trees here, very cute. I'm really, I just love those. So what we're gonna do essentially is we're gonna take this scene and put it in this little white box. So my thinking, my best bet for you guys is we're gonna do some folds. So let's start off with some folds here. So you'll notice that we've etched with the laser cutter these two lines on this piece of black cardstock, and we are going to fold on these as well. So we're going to start with this top line right here, the one closest to the trees, and we are going to fold like so. So we're going to fold back away from the trees and just be really careful with this. I'm going to do it right in this. Let's see here. Perfect. So be really careful as you're folding this. If you notice, these little trees have little tiny trunks. And want to make sure that you don't bend those. So if you see here, I bent that piece of that little line right there. So I bent like so. So we kind of have this little cute little tree scene right there. We still have one more line. So again, bent there. So we've bent those trees. So it's shaped like this right now. And what we want to do is we want to fold that last line in the same way. So we're gonna, you see those two little holes right there. You might have guessed, I'm gonna be sticking some LED leads through there eventually. But we're also gonna want to fold this line like so. So folding it just like so. So we end up, if I fold this out, so if I fold this out, we have these lines right here. It kind of makes a nice little trough right there with our trees on one side and then our stars on the other, or our background. So take a look that's how we have folded that. So you have some nice trees. Then you kind of have this little space right here, which is where we're going to house our LED. So let's take a look. Before we put our LED in there, I want to get part of our Aurora in there too. So really pretty. See that little sweeping Aurora right there. You might notice too, if you look very closely, you can see actually the some burn marks from the laser cutter, which I think looks pretty cool. One side is typically a little more burnt than the other, so use whatever side you wish. But what we're gonna do, so again, take a look. So we have this trough, and we're gonna lay this down. So lay it down. And you're gonna glue your Aurora basically into this scene. So I'm gonna get some glue in a second, but essentially you wanna glue this Aurora to the background of your scene, so behind the trees. So I'm gonna take some of this glue. I'm gonna glue my Aurora. Boop, boop, boop. And this is what it's white, and so the light from the LED is going to reflect off of it beautifully. So I got some glue on there, and I'm going to glue it right onto the background, like so. Lovely. Make sure that's really in there. So nice and glued. So essentially what you've got some trees in the foreground, and in the background we have this Aurora and some stars. That's what those little punch outs are. And it's gonna look really great once we get things lit up. All right, so pause this video if you are still working on either the folding part, so again, the folds, or you're gluing your Aurora down. So pause it if you need to. And from here, we are going to start adding our LED and getting our LED glowing so we can see some auroras. So I'm gonna take and put this down, and I'm gonna get my LED. It's a beautiful LED right there. Again, multicolor changing. So this might feel weird, but we want to bend our legs, our leads of our LED, and that's gonna help us stick the LED through the holes. So I'm gonna hold the light part of my LED. I'm just gonna bend my legs of my LED. Don't worry. As long as you don't break them off, you are good. It'll still work, I promise. So we've bent the legs of our LED. So take a look. So they're bent, there's my light. And you'll notice that you can still very clearly tell which one is shorter, which one's longer. That'll be helpful when we are lighting this up. You're gonna take this, and it doesn't necessarily matter which side is on which just yet, but you'll notice that there are these two super tiny holes in the back of this paper, and you're gonna take your LED, and you are going to stick each leg through those little holes, which might take a little bit of a push, but because we've cut those holes in there, it should be fairly easy to stick them through. So I'm gonna do that right here, and then I'll show you what it looks like on my end. All right, so take a look. I have stuck the LED legs through those holes. And you can see, there they are. And then our LED is actually right here in between my trees and my background. So pretty cool. So when this lights up, you shouldn't be able to see the LED light there. It's basically hidden behind the trees, but you will be able to see the light sort of beyond the trees, which is going to be really cool. All right. Now, let's take a look here. So you can put the rest this on the side for a second. Let's get back to this white box that you've put together. And you'll notice that there is a tiny little slit on the bottom, and that is where you are going to put your legs of your LED. So you might have noticed that the black background fits very, very, very nicely into this white box, and that is for a good reason. You're going to basically take your white box and stick your black background in there while trying. This is really hard, but I know you can do this. You want to make it so that those LED legs go through that slit, and it might take a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of coaxing, but here we go. So if you take a look here, sticking through, there we go. Nice. So, might need to press on the sides a little bit, but it should fit nice and snug in there. So what you've got is this really nice tree scene with this aurora, some nice stars, and you are ready to light this thing up. Now, we could stop here and just take this LED, and as you remember, the long leg is always on the positive end. The short leg is always on the negative end. And we could really just stick this battery right here. And if I turn off my light, you can see we've got a nice glowing aurora scene already. But it's kind of hard to hold a battery like this. So we've made these great little holders so that you can control your Aurora Papercraft a little more easily. But again, you could, if you wanted, just stop here and you'd have a great Papercraft. But in an interest of ease of use, let's not do that. All right, so we've got a cool scene, cool Papercraft. What we're going to do is we are going to make these legs a little easier to connect to that battery. So you may have noticed that you have two of these papers, they're identical, in with your kit. And you may have noticed that there's a cut right here and a line to fold on. What you're going to do is you're going to take these, you're going to fold the papers just like that. So take this white paper and fold that valley fold right on that line, so you end up with a piece of paper like this. And you're going to do the same on the other side. So see that line right there? We're going to valley fold just like before. Nice. All right. So this is where we get to use our conductive tape. Now, conductive tape is, well, it's conductive. So it allows that flow of electrons. So there are a bunch of electrons in this battery, and they are going to flow from this battery into this LED and then back into the battery. And that process of electron flow is what we call electricity. It's pretty nifty. So neat thing about this conductive tape is that it's sort of like an extension of these LED legs. Essentially, the electrons are going to flow from this conductive tape into the LED and then back out the LED and back into this battery. So we're just sort of extending the legs of the LED. Now, to do this, you'll note that you have 4 pieces of conductive tape in with your kit. You really only need 2, but it's easy to bend this stuff. So we wanted to make sure that you had enough to work through any sort of potential conductive tape mishaps, because it can happen. All right, so note you can peel this off like so. And there's a lot of techniques for applying conductive tape. You can do it my way, maybe you have a better way. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this conductive tape, and you'll note, so we have this fold right here, and I am going to take the tape and I am going to apply it down the length of that piece of paper. and it'll cut off at the end right there. So take a look. So we can fold down on that piece of conductive tape. Now, there are a few things you can do here. I typically am just gonna rip this piece of conductive tape off. It's easy to rip. And what I'm gonna do is this. So essentially this conductive tape is gonna help us make a little battery holder. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this excess tape, and maybe instead of this piece of excess tape, you wanna use a fresh piece of conductive tape, which is absolutely fine. But you want to attach one of your LED legs to this tape, right on the tape. So take a look. I'm gonna use my positive leg right here, so the longer one. And actually, I'm going to make these legs do a split a little bit. So notice they're a little bit farther apart now, easier for me to work with. And I'm gonna take one of these legs, I'm gonna stick it right on the tape. It's hard to see. So right on the tape. And I'm going to take my little excess piece of tape, stick it on that leg. Oh, stick it on that leg. I might need it actually. Yeah, get a new piece of tape for this one. I tried, but I want to make sure it's sticky enough to stay on there. So I ripped off a little piece of this conductive tape. And I'm going to take it, nice and sticky, and I'm going to stick it right on that leg. So take a look, like so. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to apply it directly onto that shiny tape. Like that. So if you see, we have that LED leg. It's attached to the conductive tape, which is attached to that whole strip of conductive tape. So essentially, what we just did was we extended the length of this one leg out this whole distance, which is going to be really helpful in a moment. Now, you're probably wondering, why on earth did we save this piece of tape from the very, very beginning? It is for now. So if you fold this piece over, so fold over this piece of paper, you are going to tape that fold shut like so. So I'm going to take this piece of tape, I'm going to place it over that fold, and I'm going to make sure that fold stays. And I have way too much tape here. That's okay. I'm going to use it. Nice. Take a look. I have folded that piece of paper over and taped over it. Nice. So this whole, like, if you remember from before, this piece of conductive tape is just an extension of that LED leg. Whoa, gonna be pretty cool. Now, guess what you have to do next? Exactly the same thing to the other leg. So we tried this once, and I have a feeling you can do it again. So let's take a look here. So we have this other piece of paper with the fold, and we're gonna take a piece of conductive tape and have it go all the way. I'm gonna take a piece right here. So I'm gonna take this piece of conductive tape, and just like before, literally the same thing all over again. I'm gonna have it go all the way. So take a look again, here's that fold. We're gonna have it go all the way down, like so. Ooh, beautiful. All right, so again, we got that fold right there. And that little extra piece on the end that I'm just gonna rip off. Nice, cool. So we should have this piece of paper that we can fold down like so. Nice. And just like before, you're gonna take a fresh piece, same fresh piece now because I think it's just a little bit stickier, and with conductive tape, nice to have it a good connection there. So I'm going to take that fresh conductive tape. I'm going to apply it to that other leg that's just hanging out there. So take a look. There it is. There it is. Nice. Awesome. So there's that piece of conductive tape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, just like before. I'm going to add it to this, to my little connector right here. And actually, I'm going to add this way. Sorry for the confusion. I want to make sure that it's on here nicely. All right, so this tape is an extension of that LED leg. I'm going to add it like so. Let's see here. Nice. So if you take a look, you have this continuous piece of conductive tape, and then you have that LED leg that's attached to both pieces of tape. So essentially, what we've got is one continuous stretch of that little leg. And just like before, we're going to fold that piece of paper down and tape it with that piece of Scotch tape. I've got to say, if you are struggling with this part right here, this mini leg connection, don't worry. This is what I believe to be the hardest part of this, is extending those LED legs here. And hopefully you've had a little bit of success. Remember, you can just add that battery to the back of this and call it a day. But the neat thing about this is that you have a little bit more control, and it's a little bit easier to use when the legs are like this. Let's see. Nice. Cool. Awesome. So what we essentially have now is we have these two little pieces of copper tape that are sticking out the ends. Those are extensions of the LED legs, which will make this a little bit easier to use. So if you want to take a look, what I'm going to do is I am going to, let's see here. I'm going to take my my battery, and I am going to place it in between these two exposed pieces of conductive tape. And if it doesn't work right away, that means you might need to switch it around to the other side. Let's take a look. So I have that battery, and if you notice that battery is going to be in between these two pieces right here, just like so. I'm going to stick that battery in between. And again, you might need to switch that battery around if it doesn't light up right away. What that means is it might just need to be on the different leg. But what you have when you're done is a working Aurora. Hooray. I'm going to turn off the lights here so you guys can see it. And again, with that last part, if you are struggling with that battery, it might help to follow the step-by-step instructions from the paper, because it's a little bit harder to show in the video. But the neat thing about this battery holder is that you can press down on it fairly easily. And you can keep it down on the table like this, which is really cool. So there you have it, an Aurora that you can share with your friends and your family. And don't forget to take pictures of this, show us what you made, and tell us all about it. We are so excited to see what you guys have done here. There are lots of other papercraft options out there. So if you guys want to take that on, origami is a really traditional sense of papercraft, and hopefully you guys have tried that out before. If you've made any really cool origami structures, we'd love to see them. That's a great application of this process. Or if you have laser cut designs before, I know some of our elementary schools have maker spaces. Some folks have been to other maker spaces before. Definitely show us, because using the laser cutter for this helped us out with this mass production. But hopefully you've had fun with this today, and hopefully you have a really cool project to share with others. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and enjoy. Have a great rest of your weekend.